Hello people, welcome to another video by Pan India Motors, the multilingual bike review channel where you will be getting videos in 3 languages, Hindi, English and Malayalam. अगर आप में से किसी को हिंदी में चाहिए तो प्लीज़ जाके मेरा प्लेलिस्ट हिंदी ചെക്ക് कर लीजिएगा. ആർക്കെങ്കിലും മലയാളത്തിൽ വീഡിയോസ് കാണണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എൻ്റെ പ്ലേലിസ്റ്റ് മലയാളം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കാവുന്നതാണ്. So you will have chapter divisions available in the timeline and also the time codes will be provided in the description as well. Alright folks, so what are we riding today? So we have got the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, one of the most powerful models from the brand Royal Enfield, which is in fact one of the most popular brands in India. And this is in fact the most powerful bike that you can get in the sub 4 lakh segment currently in India. So today I haven't got this bike from any showroom. In fact, this belongs to a friend of mine. I got this from a friend of mine who has been riding this bike for the last 2 years and a few months, which implies that I got this vehicle for a few kilometers today and a lot of time. So I did a 130 kilometer ride on this bike, and my experiences that I share with you here is actually based on this 130 kilometer ride that I did today. So where did we go for this ride? We actually went to a place called Ponmudi, which in fact is the most popular hill station in Trivandrum, and also a road trip that offers good roads, bad roads, city roads and some hill roads as well. So let's go and find out what we have got in this vehicle. And guys, before going into the video, let me tell you what we have in this video, like the sessions of this video. We'll have a very small walk around review for those who haven't seen this bike before. Then we'll have an ownership review. We'll have a ride review where I'll be sharing with you my personal experiences. So you can access all this from the timeline below or from the description. So let's do one thing. Let's begin with the walk around review, and after that, after a small walk around review, we'll move on to the ride review. Come on. So for those of you who are seeing this bike for the first time, this is the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, the more comfortable of the 650 twins. So this is quite a retro styled motorcycle, and in this process of making this bike a retro, the company has given halogen headlamps and indicators everywhere, spoke wheels and a lot of chrome finishing from the handlebar to the exhaust and engine part. So now when you take a quick look at the headlight area, we have got a small fly screen just above the headlight, which in fact is an extra fitting that you get from Royal Enfield itself. And coming to the engine, we have got a 648cc parallel twin engine that produces 47 bhp power and 52 Nm torque. And this gives us a 174 mm ground clearance. To the brakes, we have a 320 mm disc in the front and a 240 mm disc in the rear. And we have dual channel ABS, and the foot pegs have got a small rubber padding over it. There you can see a small extra foot peg also. We'll talk about that later. And coming to the handlebars, we have really wide handlebars which are quite comfortable. And here we have the engine fuel switch, and below that we have the start button. The mirrors are in fact quite wide. They are the touring mirrors that you get from the brand Royal Enfield itself. Coming to the left side of the handlebar, we have the dim and bright switch, and just below that you have got the indicator switch, and below that you have a really good horn, which is kind of good to hear. Let's move on to the meter console area. We have got a pretty basic meter console area, and we have got all the basic details like odometer, the total distance covered, fuel level indicator and basic stuff like that. And here we have a small RPM meter. And talking about the tank, this tank, it's a metal tank, a 13.7 liter metal tank where you can easily mount a small magnetic tank bag. The seat is it's a touring seat that you get from the brand Royal Enfield itself. This is not the standard seat, and this seat is actually more comfortable than the standard ones. More like it offers a better cushioning. When you come to the rear part of this vehicle, this has got a halogen setup again everywhere, and I like the dual exhaust. Now this is the 240 mm disc that we have at the back, of course spoke wheels everywhere, and just above that suspension, I don't know if you can see, there is a small yellow color thing which are brass bobbins used to tie things, and of course they look good also. So that's a quick walk around for those of you who haven't seen this vehicle before. So we'll talk about the more important parts, the more important details in the ride review and the ownership review that follows. Let's go. Okay people, so let me share the views that I developed as part of my ride, the 130 kilometer ride I did to Ponmudi with you people. So the first thing that I want to tell you is the thoughts that I have on the seat height and the seat width. Because whenever I have seen this bike on road or whenever I've seen this bike in pictures, one thing that I have always been concerned about was the seat width. Because I have always felt that the seat is quite narrow. Because whenever I saw this bike, wherever I saw this bike, I have always felt that the seat is quite narrow. But as soon as I hopped on this bike, as soon as I sat on this bike, the thing that actually came to me, that I thought at that point, was that if this seat was even a little bit more wider, I might not have been able to keep my foot planted on the ground like completely like I do now. Because this is a bike with quite a high seating position. When you check on the brochures and all, you will find that the seat height of this particular vehicle is 804 mm, which means it's relatively higher than most other bikes which are which have an average seat height of around 800 mm, because most bikes have an average seat height of around 800 mm, and this one has a seat height of 804 mm, which means this is a bit higher than most other bikes. And one thing that I was actually amused about is that the seat height, the seat width, the narrow width actually never made me feel uncomfortable while I was riding this on all these terrains. In fact, the power of this bike kept me so engaged that I actually forgot about the width of the seat and the concerns that I came there with. But still, if you're a person of a height of less than 5.7 or something, I would certainly suggest that you should go and get a test ride before booking this bike. This is a good bike, but I'm sure you might need this test ride. Another thing that you would find common in all these bikes that come from the brand Royal Enfield is the heaviness that all of these bikes have. And this heaviness is something that also adds to the hero image that it has always had in the Indian minds, the Indian media, as well as the Indian market. So when you compare this to other models of the brand, the Royal Enfield brand, you can see that the most basic brand, the most basic model from the brand, the Royal Enfield Standard Bullet 350, it actually weighs around 186 to 191 kg, while the Classic weighs around 192 to 195 kg, and this particular bike, the Interceptor, it weighs 202 kg, which means it's quite heavy. But what amuses me the most is that this heaviness, it doesn't translate this heaviness to me, to the rider. Actually, when you ride a Royal Enfield Classic 350, the old Royal Enfield Classic 350, I wouldn't call the new one heavy, because I think the new one has a better a more developed rider ergonomics. So the earlier one, the earlier version that we had, the Classic 350, it had this issue where even when you ride this bike, not only when you take it from a stand or when the bike goes out of control, not only then, but even when you ride this bike, it kind of reminds you that this bike is heavy and you should ride accordingly. But this particular bike, what I felt good about the riding ergonomics and good about the weight distribution of this bike is that only when you lift this bike from the stand, you will understand that this bike is heavy. But after that, you will in fact forget about the weight, the 202 kg that you are sitting on. So if you ask me if this bike is heavy, then I would say that yes, it is heavy when you pick it up from a stand or when you are trying to pick up a fallen bike. Now, another aspect that actually adds to the hero image that this bike has always had, in fact a more prominent aspect, is the sound, that the characteristic sound that Royal Enfield bikes has always had. This characteristic thumping sound in fact resonates the heartbeats of many fans of this bike that you can find in India. The thumping sound that you get when you buy this vehicle, the standard sound that you get in this vehicle, is actually quite a good sounding one. In fact, it's music to the ears. But I have seen many people doing additions, like changing this voice and matching it to their needs and musicalities. This particular bike has in fact got a very different sound from what you normally find in a Royal Enfield bike. A very different sound, which is not really a thumping sound, but in fact kind of a growling sound, but at the same time something that doesn't let go of the seriousness or the heroism of the thumping sound. This particular vehicle that I am riding, it has got a new air filter from the German brand DNA. In fact, has made this sound even better and at the same time not too loud. Now let's talk more about a more functional thing. So let's talk about the suspension. When you talk about the suspension of this bike, one thing that I have to tell you is that this particular bike is owned by a person who is at least 10-15 kgs more than me, and of course has a better height than me. So when he bought this bike, he actually bought it with the highest suspension setting, the hardest suspension setting as possible, so that it will be comfortable for him on rides. When I was riding it, what I felt was that the suspension could have been a little bit softer for my weight, because I weigh around 77 kgs, and for me the suspension I think could have been set at a more medium level so that I could be riding it more comfortably. But yeah, this is not my bike, this is his bike. He would obviously set it according to his comfort. But even with that, on short rides and all, I didn't think it was a problem at all. So up to around 70 or 80 kilometers, I was not really feeling any kind of suspension issues or any kind of difficulties on my back. But after that, when I actually had to encounter a few really bad roads, I felt like, yeah, if the suspension was set to a more medium level, it would have been more lenient on my back. But the other side of it is that it was actually making me more comfortable while I was doing cornering and was negotiating the hairpin turns that I had at Honmudi. So when you are now talking of the suspension, in fact you are dealing with the riding comfort, and when you are dealing with the riding comfort, one thing that you should certainly mention is the riding posture of this particular vehicle. When you're sitting on this vehicle, you are not really sitting completely upright. You are in fact bending down a little bit to the handlebar. But at the same time, that doesn't make you uncomfortable on short rides, and in fact it gives you a lot of control while you're riding this bike. But if you are a person who intends to take this bike on a highway ride, like a really long ride, I would say that either you get like a handlebar raiser, or you can actually get used to this, because to get used to this, I think you'll have to do a lot of rides. You'll have to understand your body, the way your body works, before getting used to this. Otherwise, it's better to get a handlebar raiser. But my friend who's actually owning this bike, he's actually I think 6 feet or something, and he told me that he was not really finding any discomfort with the riding posture. In fact, it's properly perfect for him. And now when you talk of riding it long, the next most important thing that you should talk about is the brakes. As I told you earlier, this bike has got a 320mm disc in the front and a 240mm disc brake in the rear with a dual channel ABS, and I feel that it actually offers quite a good bite. I rode this bike to a maximum speed of 80 km per hour, and I didn't dare go beyond that on these curvy roads. And as you know, these are our Apna roads, so we know how unpredictable these roads are, so it's better not to try those in these roads. So for a speed beyond that, to find out how much this brake is good for a speed beyond that, we'll actually have to try it on a track or somewhere this speed is legal. Because as you know, this vehicle has got a top speed of around 170 and a cruising speed which you can comfortably ride all day of around 140 or something. Ride all day because in the sense that if you're riding on highways, like on good roads. Now there are more things that I want to tell you, but I think I'll tell you the rest of it as part of the ownership review. The ownership review, I would call it an ownership report, because I haven't got the owner for the video. In fact, I had sent them a questionnaire each, and their replies, I'm gonna present those replies to you in a first person format, because if I give it to you in the interview format itself, if I give it to you in the question answer format itself, it will be more boring than usual. So now when you talk about the ownership experience of this bike, the owners of this bike, they actually got this in December 2019, which means they have used this for like 2 years, more than 2 years, like 2 years and 3 months I think, and they have ridden to a maximum number of kilometers of like around 5,300 or something. This was in fact a custom model at that time, because the Baker Express color was in fact a custom model at that time, and it was I think in 2020 or something that Royal Enfield launched the Make It Yours program, where you can customize your bikes online. You can even get your names printed on top of it. But those of you who actually want to give your names to the bikes, please make sure that it won't affect your resale value or things like that. I'm not sure of that. Please do inquire about it before you do all those things. Now, to talk of the changes that the owner has made to this vehicle, he actually explained it to me in 2 segments. The changes that he did with the Royal Enfield company, and the changes that he did with parts of like third-party part providers. From the Royal Enfield company, what he did was like he got a fly screen that I showed you in the Walkaround review, the small fly screen that you see in the front, which is quite a cute looking thing. And then he got the touring mirrors, which in fact offers a better view than the standard mirrors that comes with this vehicle. Then the fog gator he got from Royal Enfield. Fog gator are the like rubber things, the rubber spring-like looking things that you find on the fogs. They actually save the fogs from in fact the suspension from getting spoiled due to the dust particles that you find in the road and rides. Then he also got a some guard or a engine bash plate from Royal Enfield while he brought this vehicle. Then the touring seat, the black touring seat that I showed you, that too is an additional setting, because I think the company offers 3 options when it comes to seats. So this one that he has used is the black touring seat, which in fact is quite good, as it gives you a better cushioning, a softer cushioning, making your ride better than better than the previous seat that it had. He also got a a brake oil cap with the Royal Enfield logo on it from the brand. Then he got an engine oil cap, an aluminium engine oil cap. Normally you get a plastic engine oil cap. He got the aluminium engine oil cap from the Royal Enfield brand with the Royal Enfield logo. Now to talk of the parts that he got from outside, from third-party providers, what he, as I already told you, he has used a DNA air filter in this bike, because the normal air filter in this bike is like paper based, and this one that's provided by the brand DNA, from German brand DNA, is cloth based. He also got the intake cover changed, in fact, to give better air intake for the engine. Then to say, yeah, then the above the silencer I showed you a small foot peg, an extra foot peg above the silencer, which was also an extra fitting, because he had this problem with, like, a few people who was his pillion had this problem where their shoes were melting because they were touching the silencer, and to avoid this problem he got this extra foot peg on the silencer. His pillion, the other owner, my friend, she also told me that she was also finding this really comfortable while riding, or like while accompanying him as the pillion. Other than this, he has also got a pair of brass bobbins which he bought from UK. It actually looks quite good and also helps you to tie things to it. So to talk of the issues that either the owner or his friends came across while they were riding this bike would include, number 1, many people actually found this problem, like even I found this problem, like while I was pushing around this bike, while the ignition was off, while I was pushing around this bike, the foot pegs were actually unnecessarily touching my legs a bit too much, and that kind of is problematic for me, and for many other riders also felt this problem who were less than 6 feet high. The owner of this bike is actually around like 6 feet or something, so he never had this problem, since his legs are like, he can keep his legs wider than the foot pegs easily. Another problem that he mentioned was regarding the fuel lid. What he told me was that the fuel lid has got a small rubber washer below it, and this rubber washer, it was starting to powder, and he wanted to change it. And when he inquired with the company, when he inquired with the showroom, what they told him was that it's actually covered in the warranty, but at the same time, when you change this, you will have to change the whole fuel lid, which means you will have to change the keys, which means you will have to change all the locks in the vehicle that uses this particular key. So to avoid this problem, he ordered a third-party washer, which in fact he is waiting for. And the final problem that he mentioned, that the owner mentioned to me, was obviously the seating comfort. That he told me that the earlier seat was actually more difficult to use. The current seat, the touring seat, is actually better, but at the same time the pillion comfort is not that great, which in fact has like 2 other aspects which I'll talk to you shortly. And the thing that he liked the most about this vehicle was the same that I too felt: the power and the torque. Something that lets you handle this vehicle really well in almost all kinds of situations. It never lets you down whenever you need power. And the longest ride that the owner has taken on this is like around 350 kilometers, where of course he was comfortable because they had mostly used the highway. Now to talk of the pillion comfort, in fact I had a conversation with both these owners while about their experiences of the pillion seat, and I got different views from them. Because my rider friend, who actually becomes a pillion like very rarely, what he felt is that when you sit on the back seat, like when you sit on the pillion seat, you feel like you are like sitting even lower than the rider, and it in fact limits your visibility of what is in front of you, which, being a person who has never been a pillion in that kind of a flat seat, finds really uncomfortable. But at the same time, my female friend, who mostly accompanies him as his pillion, what she told me is that one thing that made her comfortable is the connect that you feel with the rider, because on the other bikes, like they were actually using a Domina before this. In the Domina, that it was like two separate compartments, which she was not really feeling very comfortable about. But in this one, she's actually feeling more of a connect with the rider, and more more of a connect, and hence more safe while riding this bike, while accompanying as a pillion. And another thing that she told me was that while you're wearing something like the Indian attire, the sari and all that, you feel that you are more comfortable on this kind of a seat, while the plain nature of it in fact makes your ride a bit easier than the Domina. And the final question that I asked him was regarding the service experience. But yeah, of course, he was not really very happy with the service experience, and he looked forward to have a better experience in future. So that's pretty much everything about the vehicle. Now let me give you my own verdict after considering my riding experience and the experience that I just shared with you, the owner's experience. See, when you give a verdict, there is always a perspective that you build up after you experience a particular thing, right? So that's the point that now I'm gonna share with you. So what kind of people should go for this kind of a vehicle, like for the Interceptor 650? I would say that if you're a person who mostly rides in the city, and even if you tour, you mostly go on highway tours, then yes, this vehicle is certainly for you. And also, if you are a person, if you are a daily commuter who is not much worried about the mileage and all, because anyways, if you're buying a 650cc bike, there is no point in thinking of the mileage. So if you are not concerned about the mileage, and you prefer the riding experience, the power and torque, the thrill that this vehicle offers over mileage, then this is certainly a bike for you, because it always keeps you engaged. It always makes you feel the thrill that it has to offer. And now, if you ask me if this is a beginner friendly vehicle, I'll have to tell you two aspects to it. Because first of all, this vehicle is heavy and this vehicle is powerful. So this combination has two implications. One implication is that this vehicle will offer you good road presence, good planted feel on the road, and a good ride quality while you're riding on good roads, and little bit problematic roads also. You will still feel good while you're riding this vehicle. The second implication is that this vehicle is quite powerful and quite heavy, and hence if you don't understand this vehicle properly, and if you just want to be impatient with this vehicle, there is a very good chance that you might end up in trouble. So what I would say is that if you are a person who's a mature rider, that's what I have said about a few other vehicles also. So if you are a person who's a mature rider, a mature learner, and of course, even if you are a beginner, you can easily control this vehicle, because it doesn't has a fear inciting power delivery or something. But yeah, it gives you power when you need it, as it offers a really gradual acceleration. So that's pretty much everything about this vehicle that I want to tell you. So guys, I know this video has been really long, so I hope you stay happy, you keep smiling until we meet next time. Bye bye.